So you've decided you want to be a Civil War reenactor. Congratulations. Where do you get started? I think the first place to get started is to look at the events that you're interested in. Civil War reenacting actually is a lot of different hobbies rolled into one, and there's all different events that you can go to. The first is obviously battle reenactments. These are reenactments where there are soldiers on the field, they're marching, and the soldiers in the war reenactment is the major focus of the event. At these events, women and children, and some events, can stay with the soldiers in the soldiers' camp and attempt to reenact the small percentage of women and children that actually were in the camps. Many events, women and children are in their own camp, which we call the living history camp. So that's one type of event, and a lot of these take place on real battlefields or they're small local events. Next up, we have what we call living history events. These are typically events where there is no war reenacting happening. They often happen at local festivals, local fairs. These type of events, sometimes there are soldiers drilling, but sometimes the soldiers aren't there at all. And in these events, typically people set up tents or shelters or little areas and they demonstrate an activity such as spinning, knitting, sewing, and even sometimes cooking, etc. From there, we have other types of living histories where it's a special event, such as a reenactment of going to the beach or the seaside or climbing a mountain, a period activity that they would have done ice skating. Those are special events and they're a little different, and we'll talk about those separately. And then the last is balls. There are a large amount of events where there is actual official balls where we reenact balls of the period. Each of these types of events call for their own wardrobe and gear needs. Now, after you think about what sort of events you're interested in, the next thing is actually to look at events that you might want to go to and find out where they are, and most importantly, look up their authenticity standards. Authenticity standards? What do I mean? These are the rules on what they require for you to attend the events. And some events are open admission and they have listed authenticity standards, but they're not as rigorous. Some events you can only go through actual units that have been approved and vetted, and you can't register on your own. And so that goes to units, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the third is events where you actually have to send a picture of your gear to be admitted, and these are often called invitation only, though you can request an invitation. So this brings us to terms that you're going to hear and you should understand. The terms are mainstream and progressive. There's an older term, hardcore, but we don't use that as much anymore. And as in all terms, there are slurs or insults that people come up for the other side. So the insult for mainstream is farby, or sort of fake, and the insult for progressive is stitch counter, or even worse, a stitch Nazi. Okay, so now that we've talked about the insults, which now you'll know and won't use, mainstream folks basically want it to look presentable from 10 feet. I gotta be honest, I'm not typically a mainstream reenactor. Progressive people say that they're progressing towards as period correct as possible. They try to research it, they try to look at pictures, and they try to do it as much as possible like they did at the time period. And progressive people say that they're never going to get there. It's a journey. Now, I have to be honest, even the most progressive folk have something they do that's mainstream. And this is where discussion boards, even on progressive discussion boards, can sort of blow up. Is because all of us have a little tiny bit of mainstream in us, even the most progressive reenactor. I'll be honest, I have a mainstream cheat that I do. My son, who started reenacting when he was 4, after a couple of events where I had his progressive wardrobe and way too many people saw his naked hiney because his pants just would not stay up, I have elastic pants on him, and I have elastic drawers on him. That's my cheat. And hey, he can go to the potty, and we don't have a problem, and no one's seen his naked hiney since I put elastic in. That's my cheat. Oh gosh, I've admitted it. Anyways, so everyone has a little cheat that they do. Another cheat that people do is coolers. They have coolers hidden in their tents. Even some progressive reenactors are progressive outside, and their tent is a mainstream mess. They've got foam pads, they've got cots, they keep the doors closed, and they say, I end here. So everyone's on the continuum here, and you may be more or less progressive on certain things. That being said, events have standards, and if you want to be at a particular event, you're going to need to fit in the range of mainstream versus progressive that they have. If you're quite mainstream and this event is quite progressive, depending on the type, they probably won't let you attend. And that goes to units. Many events that are a little more progressive expect you to be part of a unit, and you can't register on your own. And so in that case, you're going to need to join a unit, even as a civilian, and often there are civilian ends to military units. There's very few civilian-only units, but there are a couple. And then that unit has to have authenticity standards that match with the type of events you want. So authenticity standards and unit authenticity standards and event authenticity standards are critical to being able to go to the type of events that you want to go to and do the type of things that you want to do. So your first homework is to go look at events near you. Find their Facebook pages, their websites, videos, pictures, read their authenticity standards, and look at what you see people dressed as in these pictures. And then that will be your first hint of where you need to be in authenticity standards to be able to go to these events. Thanks for watching. Bye.